Hello again. I have a short and sweet episode for you today. I want to talk you through a little bit about the nervous system and different nervous system states. And there are two main reasons why I want to do this. The first is that the nervous system and regulating our nervous system is a real buzzword and popular topic at the moment. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I thought I would clear up a few things. And the other thing is that once we get into some of the guest episodes, you will hear some discussions around the nervous system and different nervous system states. And so what I wanted to do was just to do this short preliminary episode, just so that you have a little bit more of an understanding about what we are talking about. So oftentimes when we talk about the nervous system, or when you hear people talking about the nervous system, they talk about the central nervous system. Now, the central nervous system is actually just one of a number of nervous systems that are in our bodies. And the nervous system refers to the brain and the spinal cord. The brainstem, the spinal cord, right? Now then, from there, there's this whole connection of nerves that go out into the rest of our bodies, which is the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so we've got brain and spinal cord, and then which is the central nervous system, and then you've got the peripheral nervous system. There's a couple of branches to the peripheral nervous system, and one of those branches is called the autonomic nervous system. And then the two branches of the autonomic nervous system are the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And so that they, I imagine, are parts of the nervous system that you are aware of. But what often happens is there is a conversation about the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches of the nervous system within the context of the central nervous system. But that's incorrect. So the central nervous system, brainstem, spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system, of which is the autonomic nervous system, of which are these two branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So just want to make sure everybody's really clear that when we are talking about the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches of our nervous system, that is the peripheral nervous system and the autonomic branch of the peripheral nervous system. So then what do we mean? What are we talking about when we talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic and the other phrases that get flung around a lot in nervous system conversation are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So let's explore that briefly. And I'm going to do this in the most simple way possible, because we do not need, for the purposes of this podcast, to overcomplicate this topic. So in your day-to-day, when you are feeling relaxed and safe and social, and your body is in a kind of rest and digest state, and you might consider this to be regulated from a nervous system perspective, or within your window of tolerance, although the window of tolerance is a little bit bigger than this, but within your window of tolerance, that would be the parasympathetic nervous system state. So it's safe and social, you're relatively relaxed, you're just kind of, going through your life. And what we have to remember is that our nervous system's main job is to keep us alive. It's there as a real survival mechanism. So it will respond and react to threats, perceived or real. Because sometimes our nervous system is in such a state that it reacts when the thing in front of it isn't actually a threat, and also sometimes doesn't react when things are a threat. And they would be signs of a dysregulated nervous system, a nervous system that is not reacting and responding appropriately to the stimulus or event in front of it. So in our safe and social parasympathetic window of tolerance, relaxed state, something may happen that causes us to feel stressed or to react and to feel a little bit activated. We might notice our heart rate elevates, our breathing quickens, and this would be us moving into the sympathetic state of the nervous system, which is where the fight and flight response live, if you like. So when we feel activated by something, when we have that urge to fight or to run away, that's the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. Now, being in a sympathetic state does not necessarily mean that we are in fight or flight, right? We would also want to be, because the sympathetic state is also that kind of get up and go. So when we are working or exercising or, you know, doing things where we're like, we want a bit of momentum, like I'm probably a little bit in a sympathetic state now as I'm talking to you about this, like that is also a sympathetic state. Like I could feel my heart rate's a little bit elevated, I've got lots of energy, right? So it isn't necessarily bad to be in a sympathetic state, but what we want when we have a regulated, healthy nervous system is that we move up into that sympathetic state to get stuff done, to respond to a request, to deal with, maybe to deal with a threat that's in front of us. But then we deal with it, we deal with the stressor, and then we move back down again. And so, and not to overcomplicate it on here, but where we've got the capacity to move up and down as we're dealing with things, that also, that part of that sympathetic state can also be part of our window of tolerance. So it doesn't dysregulate us because we're actually just responding appropriately to the stimulus in front of us. And then we've got the freeze state and the fawn state. So I think of the fawn state as kind of like people pleasing. You know, we kind of like, we don't express ourselves, we don't say what we want, we're just like, yeah, that's fine, whatever, because something in our system stops us from saying that's not okay, or no, I don't want to do that. So often people lump all of these together. So they talk about the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, and then they talk about fight, flight, or freeze. And very few people talk about fawn, but they bunch it all together. And again, this is incorrect. So the freeze and fawn parts of the nervous system, those states are actually a much lower part of the nervous system. So we talked before about the parasympathetic. So there's actually a lower part of the parasympathetic. So like normal parasympathetic, healthy, safe and social, and then there's the low parasympathetic. And if we were going to talk about this from a polyvagal perspective, so polyvagal theory also looks at the nervous system, this would be the dorsal branch of the polyvagal system. So that low dorsal state. And that is more where we experience depression or low moods or apathy or can't be bothered, right? That's that low parasympathetic dorsal state. So when we're like activated and agitated and we're feeling anxious, sympathetic, depressed, low, can't be bothered, what's the point, there's no hope, it's all just too hard, is that low dorsal, low parasympathetic state, which is where we also experience the freeze response. And why it is important to know this is because when we are working with regulating the nervous system, when we are working with understanding what's happening with the nervous system and supporting our bodies to become healthier and more regulated, different approaches are required for a system that is predominantly in a freeze state, so that low parasympathetic dorsal vagal state. A different response is needed for that state than when we are in a high sympathetic, stressed, anxious, fight or flight state. So I'm going to leave it there. I wanted this just to be a really short one today. And I appreciate that you might need to listen back to it a couple of times because I've gone through quite a lot. But just to summarize, when we are talking about sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight, flight, freeze, everybody's talking about at the moment in the context of the nervous system, this is the autonomic branch of the peripheral nervous system. It's not the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord. And when we are talking about that sympathetic response, that stress response, the run from the saber-toothed tiger response, that's the sympathetic, and that is where fight and flight happens. That's where the fight or flight response sits. When we are thinking about, and it's where anxiety sits, when we think about depression, feeling helpless, feeling low, the freeze response, the fawn response, we are down, we are in the low parasympathetic dorsal state. And the approach for each is very different. So I hope that that is a useful, quick overview of the nervous system in the context of how you will hear it spoken about. And I hope that clears up any misconceptions that you maybe had. I appreciate that this is quite a simplistic overview, like it is quite complicated, but just in terms of it being an intro, I think that's what you really need to know for today. As ever, if you have questions, if there's anything else that you would like to know about this, please do reach out to me. I would be happy to help. Right, take care, have amazing days, and I will speak to you next time. Bye.